war, terrorism, and acts of racial injustice. These acts affect different groups of people in different ways. While some may argue as to the level of severity of these events, they all hold one thing in common that can't be disagreed on. They all affected people at levels detrimental enough to have government step in and provide reparations to the party negatively affected. Before January 1st of 1923, the African American residents of Rosewood, Florida considered themselves lucky. Racial relations in this town were much better than those surrounding it. This would quickly change, however, when a woman named Frances Taylor reported that she was attacked by an African American man. This claim was disputed by a woman named Sarah Carrier who worked for Frances Taylor. Miss Carrier said that she saw it was a white man that attacked Frances. The white residents of the town chose to listen to Frances's word and disregarded what Sarah had to say. Her words quickly incited a mob that killed one of the African American residents of the town. The killing wasn't done there, however. The night after the first death, the entire Carrier family gathered at Sarah's house, with around 25 people taking refuge there altogether. A group of armed white men gathered around the house, starting a shootout which would last late into the night, before the Carrier family fled to the swamp. Their time in the swamp lasted for around 4 days while the mobs of white men destroyed the African American parts of the town. Newspapers released during the event detailed how all of the African Americans living in the town fled, as a group of around 300 white men burned the town to the ground. The death toll for this event is believed to be as high as 200 members of the African American community of Rosewood. After the event ended, everyone went back to their lives. However, they were never the same for the victims of the Rosewood attacks. It wasn't until the 80s when the story was brought back to the national spotlight, with some of the victims still living and giving their eyewitness reports of the attacks from that night.
Big blaze, just burning down, just burning up the whole thing, just burning up my grandmama's house, churches, and everything. They burn up everything we had.
I'm bringing back memory that I wished I could get rid of. You know what I mean? Has been a hobby. If you just had been here to listen to all this and see some of it, then you would have known just what it was. We lost everything.
Lost everything.
When it picked up traction nationwide, it was clear that these victims were owed compensation for what they dealt with. When discussing reparations, there are two main questions to first be asked. To whom are they owed, and who will be responsible for providing them? The grounds for reparations when paid by governments usually involve either a change of law that makes the past occurrences illegal, or when someone was wronged in the past and there is no party that can be viably held accountable. The Florida state government stepped in and decided that they would be responsible for paying the victims. When discussing pay, many of the direct victims believed they were owed sums of up to $1 million. When the bill passed in 1994, they got a measly $150,000, while the descendants of the victims got checks of around $2,000. They were careful in their wording of the bill, not citing the payments as reparations for the acts of racial injustice, but rather for the property lost during the event. When the money was given, it was quickly spent as the recipients were buying back things that should have never been taken from them. The more important aspect of the bill that had a much larger impact on the victims was about education. With the payments came along a stipulation that all victims and descendants of victims from the Rosewood Massacre would be able to attend college for free in Florida. Although the payments were meager amounts and the government still tried to fight against it, this piece of legislation was very important, not only to Florida law, but national law as well. It marked the first time that reparations were paid to the African American community for acts of targeted racism towards them. Due to the clause added in to give scholarships for higher education, the positive effects these reparations had are still seen today. Since the bill passed, there have been 297 students to attend a Florida college with the Rosewood Scholarship. One of the more popular schools for these students to attend is Florida A&M, one of Florida's more prestigious HBCUs. On average, college degree holders make $22,000 more a year than people who hold only a high school degree. So while these checks to descendants were a mere $2,000, they can be making much more in their lifetime earnings. The poverty rate for people with a high school degree is also 3.5 times higher than those with a bachelor's degree. This serves as a model for future cases where reparations like this could take place. While victims of the Rosewood Massacre can never fully be repaid for the hardships they experience, setting up their descendants for future success is a way to bring hope to others who have undergone similar situations.